This is the Meet at Purdue podcast.
Welcome to the Meet at Purdue podcast, brought to you by Purdue University Conferences and the Purdue University Office of Engagement. My name is Chris Bishop, and I'm joined, as always, by Nick Benora. Nick, how's it going?
Doing well for a Monday.
Oh, it's one of those days, isn't it?
Start of November. Here we go.
Well, this is one of my favorite holidays coming up, Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm already getting my stretchy pants
Got to
out.
get prepared now.
That's right.
So, one of the things we want to talk about, and we got this question, and it's a pretty good question. It's simple, but then it's like, boy, there's a lot of different things that go into it, and it's actually the question is how should a virtual event be different than a live event? And it's a good question. We've been in the live event business for so long, and now we were forced to go into the virtual or the digital event business, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think that there'll be some version of a virtual event that's going to stay for a while. So, Nick, when I say virtual event, just kind of off the top of your head, and we can go into some different talking points, but what comes to your mind when you hear virtual event?
Well, it's a great question, and there's a lot of different ways to approach that question, and how should it be different, and what makes it different. There's a lot that goes into that. Virtual, really, to me, the first thing that comes to mind is that you're not having people in the same place at the same time. And that the basic definition of a virtual event is just it's the absence of being all together in the same place. So it can take many different formats at that point. Is it a combination of, well, we don't want to jump ahead, but a combination of online and in-person, those hybrid events and what that looks like. But to me, a virtual event is just the absence of being together in the same location at the same time.
Yeah. No, that's great. So let's just dive right in. There's we've talked for a long time about what a live event looks like. Well, let's go into some of the things that we think should be in a virtual event. And number one, I think that when we were talking about this ahead of time, we said quality production. What
Absolutely.
What do you mean by quality production?
Well, you have to take into account your participants' expectations. When you go from a live event to a virtual event, your live events, and I'm going to generalize here, but the assumption would be that your live event was a very top quality event. Your participants expected a lot out of what they were investing to come to that event. So the return for them had to be worth the expense of time, money, travel. Everything that they had to invest to be able to go, their expectation level was high, that it was worth that investment because they were going to get something out of it. So for a virtual event, you have to absolutely, the bare minimum is you have to meet that same expectation that the event is going to be worth their time. Now, they might not be having all the same expenses of travel and lodging and hotels and all of the other things and F&B, but there's still one, the registration fee to attend, because you should not, and I'm going to make a blanket statement here, but you should not be making your virtual events free because your content still has value. So the expectation is still going to be, if I went from a live event last time to now that it's virtual, my expectation level is that this is still going to be a quality event. So you have to, at the very least, meet the expectation of what they were going to get in a live setting. How you accomplish that, though, is going to be very, very different because you are now virtual. Things to take note of, and I think this is an area where the event industry is still, I don't want to say struggling, but there are so many different ideas of what's the major component that makes a virtual event successful. And a lot of the talk still continues to be around engagement for the virtual events, either the engagement between the participants and the vendors, the participants and the sponsors, the participants with each other, the participants with the speakers. So engagement is a really hot button topic right now, as everybody is still running very, very fast to virtual events. And like you said, we know that they're not going to disappear when the pandemic is over or whatever that next version of reality looks like. So you have to meet the expectation that it's still a high quality event, but you also have to address those issues that are sort of instantly noticeable. If you don't have everybody in the same environment, what do you have to do to keep their attention? Now it's virtual. Now they're spending more time staring at a screen. I don't think that there's anybody who thinks a lot of screen time is better for you from a health and physiological standpoint. So there's that issue to take into account, but there's also getting people outside of just sitting in their home offices, not engaging with anybody. So you have to pay attention to how long you're having somebody in front of a screen, and then what are you doing to make it an engaging experience.
And I'm going to say, this could be a controversial statement. I don't think so, but a Zoom meeting is not a virtual event.
No.
Zoom is a wonderful, and Microsoft Teams, WebEx, Google Hangouts, Zoom, whichever platform you want to use. It is a wonderful tool that is used as part of a virtual event. It is not the event.
No, they
itself.
They all have their place within that event. I was on a virtual event last week, and after utilizing the virtual event platform that the main stages and everything were on to, and all of the networking tools that they had built into it, when it came time for specific roundtable discussions, we left that platform and went into Zoom because it was easier to have people in individual breakout sessions through that tool. So they absolutely have their place. They're still very important, but you're right. You don't want to make the mistake of saying this Zoom call is now my event. You have to think of it as a tool that's in your toolbox, but not the entire event.
So when we talk about quality production, one of the things, and let's unpack this just a little bit. When I hear quality production, I think of television. I think of HD quality video. One of the things that I would say with a quality production, it's quality when you feel like you're in the room. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. And I think that the big difference between a live event and a virtual event is you're switching the type of production. You're going from a theater production to a TV production or a movie production. Some of those roles are going to cross over and transition, but a lot of them are going to be different. And so absolutely, when you say high quality, just like a high quality live event, there are certain standards that come along with that and certain expectations. And so it does need to be produced high quality. HD, of course, is the way that you want to go. You want to make it feel like you are in the room with the speakers or the presenters. And so you've got to have a production team that knows how to do that. You've got to have videographers. You need a producer. And for the most part, your event planner would still fill that role just like they would in a live event, but there's a whole other level of technical expertise that needs to come in here that you need to have seasoned production professionals step in and be able to help you produce these so that you've got that, I feel like I'm right there. I think, and not to jump too far ahead in this type of conversation, but that also comes down to making sure that your speakers are comfortable being on camera, which is a different thing than being comfortable standing in front of thousands of people. People, there are. It's just different when you're staring into the lens of a camera than when you're staring out into the 1,000 set of eyes. It's completely different, and so you have to also know that your speakers are ready, and if that means additional prep time so they're comfortable, making sure that they're lit in the right way, they've got the tools that they need, that they know their script so they doesn't sound like they're reading a script, that they know what they want to talk about. I know that's another piece of it, but yes, you've got to feel like you're right there with them.
No, but that goes into the overall the quality production level. So kind of the takeaways from this, number one, quality production. Find somebody or hire somebody who can produce, who knows what they're doing, who knows how to put things together,
Absolutely.
who can keep you on a schedule. Yes, your event planner will help you with that, but you need somebody technically sound. Other things with that: speaker prep, lighting, sound. There's a lot that goes into it. We got our guy Dave here, behind the camera, and he sets up a lot of the lighting here. Well, not a lot, all the lighting here. He sets up the microphones. He makes sure the sound is good. It's something that you and I could never do, but it enhances the quality so much that it's well worth the cost.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
All right, so we've gone into the quality production. We want a good, professional looking event that not only makes people want to tune in, but it makes them want to stay tuned in. So the next thing, and I think this is just super, super important, is once they've tuned in, how do you engage these people? Now, in live events, that was super simple.
Mm-hmm.
People raise their hands. Okay, we got a question in the audience. Or we can do real-time polling in a live event. Obviously, we've all been in a conference. How many have done this? Raise your hand.
Right.
Or, so that's easy. That's almost a foregone conclusion. We can engage with the people who are in the room. Now, we don't have any participants in the room anymore. Mm-hmm. So how do we engage people who are tuning in virtually all over the world?
That's a great question, and it's a big problem that our industry is coming up trying to solve in a lot of different ways. And one of the really hot things right now that has emerged from all of this as we look at the data is this idea of microtribes.
Okay, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. This can be a topic all on its own. So
Yes,
we could go for 30 minutes on this one. I don't want to right now.
Okay.
But for right now, just give us the 30-second to 1 minute version of what microtribes are.
So a microtribe is just a way for event organizers to do the work of finding a group of people so that as an attendee or a participant going into the event, you already know you have your group. So instead of walking into the coffee break and feeling like you don't know anybody and kind of stumbling around awkwardly for 15 minutes trying to start a conversation, the event producers have done that for you. And so it just gives you a base group of people that you can come back to during the conference to share knowledge and ideas and things that you've learned and just have those conversations with.
It gives you a sense of belonging when you're staring at a computer. I mean,
right.
You're going to be in your office, you're going to be in your home office, wherever you are. Microtribes give you a way to feel connected, just like you would in a live event. Like, oh, I already know Sally and Stacy and Dave and Doug. We've already been talking before the event. They're all here.
Right.
Great. I know somebody that I know somebody's watching with me.
Right.
So that's great. And actually, we are going to do another whole show on that because I think that that's just very important. And I think that, especially in the academic community, I don't see it going on right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that could be such a huge benefit to our academic community.
Yeah, because there's a ton of metrics that you can mine out of a microtribe, and we'll talk about it later.
So then, in terms of engagement, from in a virtual world, what are some other things that people can do or that event organizers can do to engage that virtual audience?
So I think this goes back to the idea of making sure that you have producers that are helping to run your event, because when you're in that virtual platform, you're going to go into these sessions and everybody's mic and camera is going to be turned off, the people who are watching the participants from home. You're going to have a moderator that's looking at the chat and feeding questions through and making sure that at that point it's up to your moderator to know how to do their job, which is a special type of job now that you've gone virtual, because you want to make sure that you are giving credit for questions back to the individual that asked them so they don't feel like they're faceless and nameless and they're just out there. Or at the same time, you can step it up and have that person's camera and microphone turned on so they can actually ask the question and engage with the speakers. Polling is a really good example of a way to do that, but I think you need to be cautious going into it. I was part of a virtual event where, you had the Q&A, you have virtual platforms where polling is an embedded feature. So this goes back to the quality production, but also knowing everything that is within that tool, knowing what your virtual platform is capable of doing. Because we were participating in this session, and then it was time for a poll. Well, they went back to okay, so get your phone out and text your answer to, okay, but I'm already plugged in, I'm on my computer, I'm watching and I'm engaging. Now I have to go get another piece of technology. Granted, it was sitting next to me, but it's disjointed. So polling is important, but make sure that you're doing it in a way that is seamless and interactive with the platform that you're using. So I'm not having to break away from that and now get out my phone and watch those on somebody else's PowerPoint. It's just make it intuitive with the tools that you're using, I would say, from a polling standpoint. Breaks are another huge thing. I forget the name of the event app right now, but it had a networking feature built into it that allowed a conversation to start and to kind of mirror what it is like in real life. So if we take the idea of going to the coffee break and you're getting a cup of coffee, and let's say you get approached by somebody who wants to start up a conversation, sort of intuitively right away whether this is a conversation you want to be a part of or not. And in a live event, you can be nice and courteous and excuse yourself because, I haven't had a chance to go to the restroom. And you leave and the conversation's over, no hurt feelings. So what this does on a virtual platform is the conversation starts, but it's going to automatically terminate after 30 seconds. And after 30 seconds of sort of the intros, it gives you the option to say, yes, I want to stay a part of this conversation, or no, I don't. If both people say yes, they do, then it goes on for another 2 or 3 minutes, whatever that looks like. So it allows people the safety of engaging with sort of an instant out after 30 seconds if it's just not somebody I don't want to talk to. So again, know the tools that you're using and what they're capable of, and try to make it. We think about this during live events, and it's just as equally important during virtual events, is you have to take into account all of your attendees, the introverts and the extroverts, the technical savvy, the non-technical savvy. You have to try to accommodate everybody. And that is also going to help with your engagement, because if everybody feels like they're being taken care of, they're going to continue to participate, and their level of engagement and satisfaction will go up.
Yep. And there's a couple of things to that. If I think it's the Event Manager blog, Julius Solaris, yes. I believe, Solaris. Julius and his team do almost a daily blog now, but they have these fantastic ebooks that you can get. They're free of charge. All you have to do is just give them your email and all of that. But they have some of these. It's like the virtual tech Bible or something like that. We've seen it, and his team has accumulated all of the different event tech or event apps that are out there. It's a phenomenal resource, and there's dozens, if not hundreds, of event apps right now. Ours. Shout out to Socio. We've had really good luck with Socio, and they'll even tell you there's a bunch of them out there, right. and it's not a one size fits all. The other apps out there, I would say they probably do about 70 to 75% the same thing. It's that other 25%. So, what you were talking about with the ability to leave a conversation, after 30 seconds. And what I would say is just do your homework, look for those polling features, look for those Q&A features, look for those little cool other ways to interact. And the one thing that I'll say as we wrap up the whole engagement thing is, and we're in academia, so, I'm going to say it really goes back to speaker prep. Speaking or presenting in a virtual world is so much different than live. It now is your job to keep those attendees tuned in. When you're in a live event, people are not just out of professional courtesy, or they don't want to be that person that got up in the middle of your of your presentation. Well, in a virtual world, they don't care.
No.
They're just click, I'm going to go watch YouTube videos now.
Right.
So it's that thing where, and we'll get into speaker mechanics later because that's a different, but if you're talking for 40 minutes straight, you've lost your audience after about 3.
Right.
So, take those breaks. Speak for 3 or 4 minutes, then do a poll. Speak for 3 or 4 minutes, and then do a Q&A. So there's a few different things that the speaker can do, but speaker prep and speaker training is a huge thing when trying to engage your audience.
It is, and it's one of those double-edged kind of situations. You want it to be absolutely as professional as possible, but at the same time, you have to invest in it. You have to invest in it. It's vitally important. But at the same time, it also doesn't have to cost a lot. There are simple things that you can instruct your speakers to do. Some of that is, identify the room that you're going to be in well in advance, and then try things out. Make sure that if anything, you're facing a window so sunlight is coming at you front on and not from the sides. Use every lamp in your house to try to figure out what lighting works and makes sense. Same thing with microphone placement. If you need headphones to be able to hear better, then get headphones. One thing that we've learned is that you don't want to use the microphones that are embedded in earbuds, because while the sound quality is great to hear, the microphone sucks when you're trying to talk to people. And so testing those things out ahead of time. And camera placement is important. Just because you have a camera on your laptop doesn't mean that you should flip the screen open and have it down below you because your participants spend the whole time looking up your nose while you're talking. And so it's those types of little things that you have to take into account. And it doesn't mean that the solution is expensive. Just put your laptop on a bunch of boxes. They can't see it anyway. So find a solution that works, but make sure that your speakers look professional, that they sound professional, that it doesn't look like they're staring down at their laptop. It's one of the most distracting things as a participant is when you know that with a little bit of effort, that speaker could have looked a lot better during their presentation. And then you don't lose people because all they're focusing on is how much hair is in somebody's nose. So it's the little things that don't require a lot of financial resources to fix. It just takes time and awareness of what your speakers look like.
Absolutely. So I want to go into another side of engagement or engaging the virtual attendees, and this is more setup of the day or of the different sessions. And one thing that I do know is that our attention span has gone way down over the years. I mean, so when we're in a live event, we're in the moment, we're there, we're watching, we're with a big group of people. Those 45-minute sessions, those hour sessions, whatever they are, they're a little more acceptable.
Right.
My opinion is that when you're doing that virtual event, I'm not watching for 40 minutes. Now, I'll say that unless I'm just absolutely riveted to the content, which is not often, I'll stay. But for the most part, I need a break. Right. I can't watch the screen for that long. I need something. I need questions. I need, I need polls. I need breaks between being talked to.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
No, I agree. And I think that this is also something that our industry has been challenged with even in the live event days. If you go back and take a look at the way some events were designed, live events, there was a great sort of anecdote that talked about how you know when you've lost your audience. And so a a live event, let's say, went on for 3 or 4 days. 3 days is usually about what they were. The first day, the key to knowing if your audience was engaged is you look at the hallways outside of the meeting rooms. On day 1, First half of day 2, the hallways were a ghost town when the sessions were going on, because everybody was inside those rooms absorbing all of that information, just packing it away. By about the end of day 2, and definitely on day 3, the hallways were full, because we've all reached our limit of how much new information that we can take in and digest and actually do something with. At a certain point, it just becomes sound, and we're tired, and we don't go into the rooms because we know we're not going to get anything out of it. And so usually second half of day 2 and all of day 3 is when people are catching up on their emails in the hallways in between, during sessions, not in between sessions. You see more networking taking place. That's when the bar would start to fill up at the hotel. That's when, the coffee stations were depleted because everybody stayed in the hallway and drank coffee and talked to each other. The same thing needs to apply to a virtual event, but your amount of time that can go by drastically has shrunk down. An all-day event for 8 hours, you need to have
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. It needs to be riveting content, but it also needs to be delivered. If you're going to go 8 hours, you better have 100 speakers you're trying to get through, but have them all limited. I attended a virtual conference that, another shout out to Julius and his team, when they did the 20 and 20. They had 20 speakers answering 20 questions, 1 question per speaker. Each speaker only had 5 minutes. And I tell you what, they cut them off. I mean, it was 5 minutes, you're done, great, we're moving on to the next person. And they did that so that as a participant, I would stay.
Yep.
But I got to see 20 professionals answer 20 really profound questions, and it only took 3 hours. If that was a live event, to see 20 people, I'd have to have spent, 3 full days on site to be able to ingest the same amount of information. So you have to think about how you're delivering it. This is where the TED Talk idea really comes into play. I mean, they were doing it live, and it was wildly successful. We have to think about the same thing in a virtual content. Now, for us, where predominantly we're in an academic setting, that becomes even more of a challenge. How do you pare down a lifetime's worth of research into a bite-sized piece? Well, then let's get creative about how we do that. But you can't just put a camera in front of somebody and say, now we're going to talk for the next 6 hours about this topic. You're just going to lose people.
Yeah, and the live events, live in-person events, did this or have done this to a little bit. They're called lightning sessions. We've seen them, where they limit the time to 20 minutes. Like, oh boy, okay. So, but here's the other thing too with the virtual event, and this is where use it to your advantage. Produce them ahead of time.
Right.
Now, if you're going to do everything live, well, then you're also kind of at the mercy of the timekeeper, and that's where a really strong moderator. You need somebody to keep that time. But if you're going to do something like the 20 and 20, or there are things called bullet point sessions where you get where it's 3 minutes, 3 topics, or be creative. Call 2x2s, 4x4s, whatever you want to call them. Keep it going, keep it moving. Force the speakers to condense their material, but then use the virtual realm to your advantage. Produce it ahead of time. Edit it. That's where a good producer or a videographer is going to come in and really make that crisp and clean and keep people engaged. Have a timer. Have a buzzer. That's one thing. If you're going to do something like this, put a timer on your screen.
Right.
Show people, like, okay, after 2 minutes, we're flipping to a new topic, so you're going to want to stick around. Keeping people engaged, if nothing else, by watching the clock and keeping them intrigued on what the next topic is. That's a huge way to keep people engaged, but also to keep people's eyes on the screen. Now, the other thing is, with a virtual event, my opinion is the 8-hour day is gone.
Right.
But that's wonderful. So there was, and I believe it was Endless Events. They did an event, and it was 30 days long, 1 hour a day. Beautiful. One topic, done. We're going to go 30 days. Do 4 hours a day. Do 2 hours a day for a week. You're not bound to a physical location anymore, so the sky's the limit. Instead of doing it in the middle of the day, have your content on in the evening after dinner where people can sit and watch it, or have it early in the morning before people go to work. There's all different things that you can do to grab people's attention that doesn't fit in the confines of that 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 day anymore.
Absolutely. And I think, just to jump back really quick, the idea of putting a timer out there and limiting the amount of time that you have for each topic, also, it challenges your speakers and your presenters to be at their best, because they know that they don't have time to try to fill and say, oh, well, I'm going to be on stage for 45 minutes. What am I going to... No, it condenses the information down to what's essential. What do I need to communicate? What is the most important piece that I want to impart during this time? And if you're going to do that, you're going to want to give them some time to prep, because 60 seconds or 2 minutes goes by a lot faster than people really think it does. But it also, it helps ensure that the information that's going out there is the top quality, and it's fresh and it's engaging. It's not going to drone on and repeat itself.
So that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. As always, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us a comment. Leave us a question. You can email us directly, conferences@purdue.edu. We would love to start answering your questions on these shows. So thanks, Dave, for everything. Nick, always a pleasure, and we will see you next time.